I mean, I'm a man who's been on a lot of podcasts, fellas, but that intro music is incredible.
Thanks to a friend of mine, Robert John Collins. Link in the description when it goes out there below.
He's taken care of business there. Well done. Nice.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so welcome to the latest edition of the Behavioural Intelligence Podcast. And as you can see, because he's there and he's already spoken, we have a guest this week. It's Kieran. By his own admissions, he's not backwards in coming forwards. Just a little bit about Kieran. If you cut him, I think he would bleed hospitality. He's worked in most areas of the hospitality industry, from the ground floor to management. And these days, he's just an advocate for the business. He does podcasts. I can't remember the name of it, Kieran. You're going to have to put that in when you get to it. And he's here to talk about a certain aspect of something which is a bit of a bee in his bonnet, and something which fits quite nicely into what we do here. So without further ado, over to you, Kieran.
I mean, thank you so much. It's a joy to be here, really is. You know, I'm a massive fan of the work that you boys are doing, and Bob always makes me feel a little bit clever after I've spent time with him, dude. So I always appreciate that. What is the bee in my bonnet? Well, the bee in my bonnet, I've got loads, if I'm honest with you. But we're here today. We're going to talk about multi-generational teams within hospitality, and actually take hospitality out of the equation, and let's talk about multi-generational teams within industry, because there is a huge amount of people right now who are sitting, potentially feeling like they've been pushed to the wayside because they get into 40s, 50s, and the applications are struggling. They're not getting kind of callbacks for interviews, and they're just feeling like they're useless. And that is not it for me. When I think about how I've built teams over the years, and I think about the success that I've personally had, it has been because I've had a real strong, diverse mix of people within my teams. And how do I do that? How do you do that? Well, I guess the first starting point is lack of ego, isn't it? Which Bob's right. I am not backwards in coming forwards, but the smart thing about having an ego, I think, is knowing when to just dial it down and when to just put it in the cupboard for a little bit and letting other people around you shine. So for me at the moment, I'm thinking hard and I'm trying to make some noise around how do we encourage industry, wider industry. Hospitality is my baby, it's my joy. But how do we encourage more people to look beyond this idea that Gen Z and millennials have all the answers, when actually there's a real base depth of knowledge that's sitting there waiting to be shared, and people who are desperate to share it because, well, there's folks like me, Bob. I'm 51 now, coming up for 52 in January. I don't have any kids. So when I die, I die. It's done. I want everything that's in my head that I've learned, I want to be able to share it to as many people as possible. That's a simple thing. I don't have kids to teach it to. I don't have anybody around me other than my nieces and nephews who, if I'm honest with you, they're bored. They're bored of listening to me. It's just there. So I want to be able to kind of share that knowledge and share that opportunity. So you're right. You know, when you contacted me and said you fancy having a chat, I was like, yes, let's talk about this. So let's do it. What are you thinking, boys? You're experts.
Ben?
Well, I was thinking. So I read some of the stuff that you provided in terms of the research, and it's something that we've looked at as well, and separate things like, you know, attrition rates are in turmoil and constantly churning over employees because they can never settle, and all of that kind of stuff that you're definitely aware of. But when I read that, if I can use the ambiguous term, hospitality will employ up to, you know, sometimes 4 generations of people. What does it mean for a leader or a boss, or whatever the right term is, not just an investigator or a protector or a behavioral intelligence analyst? What does it mean for these guys to be able to adapt their understanding of interaction and knowledge sharing and communication and conversation across these kinds of generational lenses almost? What does it mean for them?
It's a great point. And I think, so I'll go back to, I started in hospitality, did work experience at school, but really seriously took on my first pub, my first business when I was like 21, 22. It was like £1 million a year business. Should never had any hope of really logically running that business, but found an area manager who really connected with us and what we were about. But we were really lucky when we walked through the door into that business. It was a tough place. So it was a tough community pub. I looked about 17, if I'm really honest with you. Blessed with my mother's genes of looking quite young for quite a long time. Not so much anymore. But walking into that place, this tough community pub, with me, my wife at the time, and thinking, right, I've got to make a difference here. I need to make a change. I need to step this place up, because it was a disaster. In this town, there were 50% of the people were lovely, 50% of the people were unpleasant. In my pub, ask yourself, which of those people were coming into my pub? Was it the lovely people? No. It was the unpleasant people who like to throw things, ashtrays, pool cues, darts, anything they could use as a weapon, glassware. There was all sorts. And I had a massive challenge to turn this place around. And if I was going to do that and try and do that by myself, it would have been so much harder, because I was 21, 22. I knew bugger all, if we're really honest with you. I could be quite charming. My baby face worked for me at times, but I needed age and experience, and I needed maturity around me to give me some tools. So knowing in that moment that actually taking a little step back and thinking, right, who was in my business? Well, in my business at that time, there was a lady called Glynnis. Glynnis was amazing. She'd been a cook in this place, and she'd been a cook in many different pubs over the years for like 20, 30 years. She was very cool. She was maybe 50 at this point, but she was scary as hell. She made me a little bit nervous, if I'm honest with you, but she just didn't look around. She said what was on her mind, and she just did it. Then I've got a cleaner, Teresa. Teresa basically spent the previous 20 years running pubs herself. She'd got over it. She was bored of it. And she was like, I just want a part-time job. So she came and worked as a cleaner for me. I'm like, amazing. I start to talk to her, and I start to understand the experiences she's got and some of the challenges that she's been through. And I start to listen. And then you've got Barry, who's her husband. And Barry was a master brewer for Home Brewery. And he just retired maybe 2 years before that. So Barry knew more about a cellar and beer maintenance than he'd forgotten more that day than I knew in my life. The man was a genius. Think about those three people, a cook, two cleaners, who most people would just look at and think, you're a cook and a cleaner, do your job. Me, happily, was lucky enough to actually, I love a cup of tea, lads. We know this. I like a brew. I like to sit down. I like to have a chat. I like to get to know people. So getting to know these three people, I was like, these are all incredible. Like, they're all incredible people who know so much. So being open and being able to ask questions, and again, putting that ego to one side when the answer's not what I think it should be, because despite not knowing enough, I still had opinions. They were misinformed opinions a lot of the time, to be honest with you. But happily being smart enough to put that to one side and think, okay, I'm going to listen, I'm going to pay attention, I'm going to ask questions, and I'm going to be curious about the answers. That, for me, curiosity is one of those kind of core values that's been through me forever and a day. How do I get to know people? How do I get to understand people? How do I get the best out of people? How do people get the best out of me? Because it's not just about what I can get from them. So those three people, if I hadn't have had those three people in my first business, my first pub, I'm not sure my career would have gone the way it did, to be fair, because I was I'm going to be real, I was a bit of a tit at times. But having the intelligence and the smarts to be able to listen to them and pay attention to what they've shared and think about that. So Glynnis had spent 30 years in a kitchen. I get to ask her lots of questions about stock management, about my menu management, about standards within the kitchen. I was a trained chef at this point, but still, I had never really worked in a kitchen to any great length. I'd worked as a pot wash, which is great, but I'd never really worked in a kitchen for any length of time, because I had a moment when I finished my City and Guild 706/2, where I had the mouth of Gordon Ramsay, but not quite the level of talent of Gordon Ramsay, which was an issue. But I worked out that the kitchen wasn't a place for me to be. I'm more front of house. It forced me to kind of control myself, forced me to have an element of discipline of what was falling from my face, which is a wonderful thing sometimes for somebody who loves to chat. So those three people changed the game for me, but only because I was able to listen, ask questions, and respond to the information and the answers that they gave me. Maybe I didn't always agree with it. Maybe it wasn't what they told me was being the answer or what they thought was the answer. Maybe it was the there's a version of it where we talk it out and we move it forward, but they added so much value. And they are three people that I look at this day, and I know full well that for my career, I owe them a tremendous amount. So I got thinking about this. I was delivering a keynote speech for the Institute of Hospitality in Manchester. And I got thinking about this, and I was thinking about I'd been writing this speech, and I'd done my usual procrastination thing of like, I'll write this speech. 4 days before I was due to give it, I was like, I really must write this speech and do the presentation. So I went and had lunch. I went and had a cup of coffee and with Teresa and Barry. Sadly, Glynnis is no longer with us, but Teresa and Barry are still kicking around. Teresa's just literally retired. They're off on an adventure. They bought a camper van. They're going to go and travel the country. But I had lunch with them. I had coffee, and we were sitting just shooting the breeze. And I was telling them the impact that they'd had on me, and I was telling them how, which for me is a really big thing. I think telling somebody that they've had an impact on you is nice. Telling them how they've had an impact and what the influence was is where the magic happens. That's a big deal. So we're sitting having this conversation. And I was like, and as I'm chatting to them, I was like, you're actually the presentation. You're what I'm going to talk about. And Barry's looking at me like, I think Kieran might have lost his mind. Teresa's looking at me like, am I going to have a photo in the deck? Am I going to be on the screens? I'm like, yes, you will, love. You absolutely will. But that was the starting point where I realized actually how I communicate with these people and the questions that I'm willing to ask and the way that I'm willing to listen, and then sort of talk through, right, now I'm going to apply it, but I'm going to apply it in this way because things have changed slightly. We've moved forward and I've got my own version of what good looks like as well. So taking on board what they've shared and then thinking, right, I'll mold it up with kind of my own viewpoint and my own mad vision for what this thing's going to be. And then boom, away we go. Those three people changed the game for me. And this was in a tough place. Honestly, no one ever believes me. I got punched in the face every day for about 3 months in this place. It was brutal. You know, it got to the point where I'd just go to Asda and buy the cheapest white shirt you could possibly find because I knew that fundamentally it was going to go in the bin at the end of the day. And I'd be buying shirts for like $5, and I'd just buy a month's worth of shirts and just in the bin. Because it was tough. These people were brutal. But having their support, those three folks behind me and my wife with me, made the difference. It really did. So having them there make the difference. Then I think, well, actually, I spend 6 months and I get this pub right, and I've spent 3 months getting punched. Boom. I'm not very good at fighting myself, lads. I'll be honest with you. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. My skill is not throwing a punch. My skill is not getting knocked over when somebody else does and staying down. That's what my brothers taught me over the years. So I learned that and we got through it. And 3 months in, we made the change and we got the place to where we wanted to be. 6 months in, people have stopped throwing ashtrays. People have stopped trying to kill me. One guy literally, this guy was like, I'm going to get distracted now, so bear with me. So this guy's name, I think he's dead. I won't say his name. He's dead, but anyway, Dave something or other. And Dave was like the one of the local criminals. And he came in the pub one night and he'd made the decision that he was going to batter me. And I was like, okay, well, that seems like a reasonable response to life. I mean, what have I done at this point? I hadn't done anything. He'd just come to this conclusion that cocaine was his friend and cocaine was driving him to make this decision that he was going to absolutely hurt me. And I'm standing there and I'm like, Dave, you're not going to do that. It's just silly. And then as we're kind of wrapping up our kind of conversation, he just leans in. He says, I'm going to come here and I'm going to wake you up. And one night you're going to find me standing over you in your flat with a razor blade. I'm going to write my name on your forehead. Now,
Drama.
He was lovely. Honestly, dude, he was lovely. Now, common sense at that moment would have been to have not said anything. Me being me went, who's going to teach you how to write? And he's just kind of standing looking at me like confused, what's going on? But this was the identity of this pub, of how it was that we found it. These people, they were nuts. But we got them and we moved them out. And we did that through kind of just changing behaviors, changing the layout, changing kind of, we put tablecloths and flowers in. But beautiful. The support of those three people around me was the key. Happily, 6 months in, my boss said to me, Kieran, are you bored of getting punched yet? And I was like, I was bored of getting punched the second day after I got punched. And he was like, well, I've enjoyed watching it for a while. I was like, harsh, Alan, very harsh. He's like, do you want to move? And so we moved to this pub in the city centre. And it was such a different vibe. It was a pub that I'd drunk in when I was 16. It was a proper left of center music, everything that I did. It was the perfect place for me. And I remember kind of Karen and I went and told Barry, Teresa, and Glynnis that we were going to be moving on, and there was not a beat between any of them before what each of them said. So when do we leave? When do we go? When do we go? And I was like, oh, that makes me so happy. That makes me so happy, because that actually means that we paid attention. So you think about Glynnis. Glynnis left school at a time when girls were leaving school at 13 and 14. No qualifications, no education, no nothing. It was just go out and you're going to go and serve a purpose. She had no education before until we got to the point where she went and did an MVQ. And she did her MVQ level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. She had more qualifications by the time she'd retired from us with doing 5 years with us than she'd had in the previous 40 years. Think about the pride that goes into that woman at that point. Think about the way she feels about that. And that is, again, it's just, you've got to pay attention to what's driving people, what's motivating people, what's making them smile, what's giving them that sense of pride. And when they walk through the door, they walk in 10 foot tall. So leaving and moving on to that next place with those 3 people was a game changer for us. Absolute game changer. That was the moment where I realized that multi-generational teams could really make a difference, because the next place we went to was nuts. We had a live venue. We had a jukebox that we owned. We would change the colors of the walls. We would change the menu. It was a really kind of grungy, I think is the word you would use to describe it, lads. Grungy.
Okay.
It was, music was kind of punk, hardcore, stoner, death metal, hip hop. All of the extremes were all there. But these 3 people still came. We had a team then that I basically recruited all my friends, because I was like, I need to make the coolest place in the world. And my friends are the coolest people in the world. So I just recruited them all. Yeah. It kind of worked, kind of didn't. Had to sack my brother at one point. It was a bit awkward, to be fair.
Oh.
Yeah, well, we are where we are. But in that place, you had this wonderful kind of cross-section, a wonderful cross-section of people who were coming through the door as the customers, but they did that and they felt comfortable as that cross-section because the people that they saw serving them and caring for them represented that cross-section. So it wasn't just 20-year-old lads running around looking cool, little skater boys, thinking they were all bad boys. You've got Glynnis, who at this point is 60, and honestly, Glynnis never lost that look of just kind of being able to look at you just like, where you just think, I think she wants to hurt me. I'm going to stop talking now. Yeah, like, maybe I'm just going to stop talking. I'm going to let Glynnis do her own thing. She never lost that. But so many people, like I talk to people now, and this was 97 till about 2005. I talk to people now who still remember Glynnis, who realistically speaking, shouldn't have mattered. She shouldn't have made that level of impact, but she did. Yeah. So the ability to have that cross-section of kind of younger lads who are kind of finding their identity, finding who they are as people, thinking they're the coolest kids in the world and thinking that everyone should want to be here because they're here. And then having that kind of age and experience that says, oi, dickhead, stop it. You know what I mean? Just hold it all down. Genuinely. Possibly one of the best decisions I've ever made. And I think about kind of how that has then influenced and gone throughout my career and how I've been able to, not necessarily replicate it, but always have that as being kind of a part of the foundation that the teams that people think you should build, and you look at it right now, everybody thinks if you're going to run a cool little coffee shop or a cool little restaurant, you should have lots of millennials and a couple of Gen Zs. That's it. That's who you should have. Gen Zs, Gen Zs. That was messy. That's what everyone thinks. I don't know. I butchered it, but we are where we are. So that's kind of what everyone thinks. But the reality is, you want a cross-section of people coming through the door. You want to appeal to as many people as you can. So why not put faces up front where people kind of go, that person looks like me. That person represents me. Now you think about kind of, and this will take it off to another level, you think about kind of diversity and equity and inclusion. People will only be what they can see. That's kind of it. They will aspire to what they can see. So if you've got, I chatting to a young black dude, and he was like, when I was in operations back in the day, I never saw anybody in head office positions who looked like me, so I never thought it was for me. Now that's kind of it. That's the impact that it has. So if we are going to create this space where people look and feel comfortable and where they see the people that represent them, then of course you've got to have that cross section. The impact that it can have on everything is huge. You know, I'm a massive kind of just a good guest experience is really the thing that kind of, if I'm in a place and somebody does something amazing, I've got to tell them that they've done something amazing. But equally, if I'm in a place and somebody does something less so, I'm going to tell them too. And more importantly, I'm going to tell them what they could have done differently to have improved that. Some people are like, yeah, thanks, Kieran. That's really helpful. Very much appreciate that. Some people are like, why are you talking to me? Why? Is this your place? Is this your responsibility? I'm like, I'm here to tell you. Like, the average person who's paying for my services is paying a lot of money. You're getting this for free, so just say thank you. You know what I mean? It's a gift.
Just listen. Just pluck your ears up. Pay attention. Oh, that's exactly. That's great. That's great. I mean, that reminds me of. Sorry about. Let me just because Glynnis reminds me of a lady I used to work with at McDonald's years ago. One of my first security roles was a doorman on McDonald's. Believe it or not, they were plagued with like the whole kind of Fast and the Furious boy racer kind of crowd, you know, with their sunbeds underneath the cars and all that kind of thing. Barbara was white hair, tattooed hands, you know, smoked about 900 roll-ups a day. That not an exact number, just an approximation. But she was the salt of the earth, no holds barred, direct talking woman who, until I got given the role, she would go out into the car park by herself and clear everyone off who shouldn't be there. And she'd do it just by communicating directly with them. It wasn't a kind of, who's this old lady talking to us kind of scenario. It was a case of, you know, yes, ma'am, their version of tipping the cap and on you go. Wonderful. Lovely.
No one's messing with Babs.
No, not at all. Bob, sorry. You go.
No, I was just going to take it back. And some of the things you said there, I mean, you are obviously an advocate for the same type of thing that I'm an advocate for. One of the things that looking at recently with the friend of mine who's a professor is how organisations are structured. And too often we work with this hierarchy, don't we, from the top downwards, and the policies and everything come down to the bottom, and then the bottom just have to make them work somehow. Whereas if you look at real places that excel, like the army or the sports sector, it's all about the individual, and everyone else above them are a support for them to be the best they can. And that is really where we need to go. And that's what I'm going to be presenting to a company we both know very soon, to their leaders, about that. But to do that, you have to engage with your people. And when you are in a position of some sort of power, that some people find that really difficult, because it means that you have to give away that power to the other person and say to them, well, I'm here to serve you, not you're here to serve me. I'm here to make you the best you can be. How do I do that? Because teams, you know, together everyone achieves more. You achieve more if you've got the guy who's computer literate, who's younger, computer literate, knows all of that, and you've got the older guy who's never been on the internet. You've got two different skill sets there. And what the younger person may lack is the ability to connect with people, especially now when you see last week or whenever it was that people are coming out now from going to universities who have done all of their learning online through the pandemic. We've got a gap that could, if we let it go, the communication gap will only split wider rather than come together. But by having that listening and understanding, and what it all is, you know, we talk about in the work that I do and what Ben does as well, is that you've got to become ALF. You've got to always listen and look first. And like you say, put your biases to the side. So what do you think, Kieran?
I mean, I'm with you. You know, I do a lot of leadership training, and one of the core kind of methodologies I'll always go back to is David Marquette, who talks about kind of intent-based leadership and pushing authority to the point of information. So the person who's probably best placed to make a decision may well be one of the lowest paid people in the building, but they've got the most knowledge about that particular situation right now. So be bold, be brave, and be comfortable. And as you say, kind of give away a little bit of power and authority and let them make the decision. Create the space where they feel comfortable to make that choice. Create the environment of psychological safety where They're not going to get absolutely reamed if it goes wrong, but they are going to get rewarded if it goes right. And all of a sudden, you've got a whole load of people then who, so basically, you end up, the last business I ran, I had 135 people working in this one business. It would have been really easy for a man like me with a big mouth and 30 years of experience to come in and just say, I'm going to do the thinking, you're going to do the doing. Great, wicked, crack on. Or the other option is I look and think, right, I've got a team of 135 people here. What I could do is inspire that 135 people to be thinking, breathing, proactive individuals who are going to start making good choices for the business because they know what our values are, they know what our processes are, and they know what our standards are, and they'll start making decisions based around those things. All of a sudden, I've got 136 people who are actually demonstrating some leadership because no matter who you are or where you sit in an organization, you are a leadership model of example to somebody. Everybody looks at somebody and goes, that person's the one for me. I like the way that they operate. So let's create a space where everybody gets the chance to do that and to live and breathe that. So I love that, Bob. I'm in it, I'm bored. And so the organization, I did some work last week, a couple of weeks ago with Volvo, and I was doing some filming about so they have this internal competition called Vista, where basically the best technicians across the globe go and compete against each other in teams within these competitions. And the team from Norwich, who won the global competition, they were outstanding. They were a very cool team. They understood what it took to win. Obviously, you just don't do that well. Excuse me. But one of the guys, Steve, who'd been there for 41 years, I was chatting away with him. I was talking about what it took to make a good team for people who are building new teams for the competition. And he was like, you know what? He's like, bring youth into it. Bring some youth into it. He said, because everyone looks at me and thinks Steve's got 40 odd years of experience under his belt, but Steve knows a lot. And he really does. Like one of the most talented technicians you'll know. He was like, but the reality is, he said, like, the world's changed. He said, like, now there's VR exercises where I'm doing it. He said, but it's not my natural space. You've got millennials now. You've got apprentices who are born digitally native. This is their place. This is their playground. They're comfortable with it it's just part of what they do. He went, so maybe we should be bringing apprentices into the team as well and giving them the opportunity. And I'm like, Steve, my man, that makes me happy to hear because this guy's 41 years worth of experience. And he's a very smart dude, but he's able to look and think, I don't know it all. And that's kind of the key of it. None of us can know everything. So let's find the people around us, the people within our businesses who do know it, who do have the information, and who have the comfort. That digital nativeness, is that even a word? Have I made that up? That digital nativity.
It should be a word.
I'm going to get distracted on it now. Anyway, that ability to be digitally native and that comfort, that's a really powerful thing because the world is changing now. Like even in hospitality, the level of technology that is falling into our businesses, everyone's talking about how AI is going to change the way we operate. It will to a degree, but it will only save us time if we're using it effectively. My worry with AI is it's going to stop some of those creative thought processes that people are just going straight to Perplexity or straight to ChatGPT and asking it a question and assuming that the answer it gives them is correct when actually quite often it's not. So you've got to keep pushing that. But AI is going to be a tool. Yeah, it's a thing. Man. So there's so much technology going to be within our businesses that of course we want to utilize people who are digitally native, but how do we blend them all together? How do we tie them together? So Steve, who kind of is able to pull a truck to pieces in record time and can rewire it in a heartbeat, but you throw a computer at him in a VR simulator and he gets to fear a little bit. Whereas the apprentice looks at Steve and goes, I couldn't do what Steve does. I don't have that particular skill. I don't have that level of knowledge. It's impossible. I'm never going to have that level of knowledge because Steve is amazing. So all of a sudden, fear kicks in on both sides. Let's take that away, put it in where we can all just kind of say, you know some cool stuff, you know some cool stuff, I know some cool stuff. How do we put it all together?
Sure.
Wow. Yeah.
The thing is that in hospitality, especially, what the older generation can bring is those conversational skills, because you talk about AI, and AI is never going to tell you when a customer's upset or when they're saying something to you, but they're not really meaning it. They're not going to tell you those things because it needs a human to do them. So it is horses for courses, isn't it? And
genuinely is.
having been in a restaurant recently where I sat at a table for 15 minutes waiting to get served and then realised on the table it says you have to, even though you're sitting in the restaurant, you have to book online. What is that all about? And when there is a guy standing there who could have come and told me, but he didn't bother.
Just, man, that annoys me so much. Like, we're a people-facing industry. Technology is a facilitator, not the tool. It is just a facilitator. So if you're giving away responsibility for that guest experience and that customer experience in that way and saying, well, they'll order for themselves, you know what they'll do? They'll order enough. They'll order what they need rather than actually the average team member who's probably a reasonable salesperson is going to come along and I'm going to tell you about the menu. I'm going to engage you in conversation and I'm going to get you thinking about dessert before you're even considered being ready for dessert. But you're going to order dessert because I'm going to drop language. And Bob, I know you're a massive fan of those positive nudges. I am all over that when it comes to what are you going to be ordering in my restaurant. I could genuinely decide what most people are going to order for them, and I could persuade them of that before we're done, if I really wanted to. If I was going to put my powers to evil rather than just exploring freedom and joy. Honestly, man, that feeling. So one of my friends was in Stornoway last week, and he had this moment where he'd had a lovely meal. It was a beautiful seafood restaurant on the seafront, and it was fabulous. And then he waited 35 minutes to pay his bill. 35 minutes. He asked for the bill, they gave him the bill, and then waited that long to pay his bill. That in hospitality is one of the key areas where we always cock it up, because the customer's made the decision that I'm ready to roll at this point. I'm ready. We kind of go, okay, well, now I'm done with you. So here's your bill and I'll get round to you. Maybe that's the moment where technology comes into play. Maybe that's the moment where we say, hang on, if you're in a rush, scan this QR code and you can pay directly through there. There are brands, Wagamama do that really well. They've explored loads of different stuff with technology, but the one thing that they've stuck with is that I get the option to decide. I can still pay my bill with a person, but I get the option to decide, do I just want to pay it as and when I'm ready to rock and go? Because then I don't have to wait. The reality is, if you make somebody wait to pay their bill, every other thing you've done up until that moment that could have been incredible, the food could have been amazing, the experience could have been superb, you could have brought joy to their heart, you could have filled their life with glee. Make them wait to pay their bill, and all of that's dead. It's gone. Yeah. It's over. So, man, let's not give away responsibility to technology. Let's utilize the people within our business, within our four walls, and get them to engage. Because, the difference that it can make, the way it will make you feel is it's incredible. It is genuinely incredible. And I think it infuriates me tremendously when I see people not taking that opportunity where they see the moment. I don't know about you boys, but I'm the kind of, if I'm in a restaurant, I'm making it really clear. I'm going to put it on a shiny silver platter that I'm here to engage. I'm here for an experience and they are part of my experience. They're not just facilitating it, they are a part of it. So I put it up there on a shiny silver platter, and the people that take it and run with it and do something with it, I love those people. They're the people who are getting a 20% tip minimum. Karen, really, Kieran, always 20%. I was like, that person's close to 30, I'll be honest with you. She's like, stop giving money away. Stop giving our money. I'm like, I'm telling you, they made me smile. You got people arguing over 10% tips. I'm thinking, how do I get it to 30? What do you need to do to get me to a 30% tip? And I'll give you the opportunity. If you don't do it, if you don't take the opportunity, all you're going to get as a tip is how you could have done better. And the simple tools, they're easy. Honestly, it does my noggin. And I was in the dentist yesterday, and there's another story. So I was in a dentist. I waited 40 minutes. I got there. I sat and waited for 40 minutes. I was there 10 minutes early. So actually, I waited 50 minutes because I was being kind, respecting other people's time. Dentist, she's a lovely girl. She's very chatty. She's very thorough. So she does take a little bit longer. But I waited 40 minutes and she came out and she took a guy in who'd literally been waiting 5 minutes. She took him in first. And I was just like, sorry, am I chopped liver? And they're like, oh, no, sorry, she's made a mistake. So come back and get me. We have the appointment. We're all good. Got to come back in October for a fill-in and a mouth guard because apparently I'm now grinding my teeth. Who knew? It's just a thing now. But she's on holiday for a month. So I booked my appointment for October and I was like, oh, cool, happy days. I go and pay and £75 for the appointment, £75 for a checkup. Genuinely, I'm in the wrong business. But then she's like, and we need £100 deposit for the appointment in October. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And she was like, yeah, we need £100 deposit. And I'm like, why do you need £100 deposit? Well, Kieran, it's policy. And I was like, oh, please don't say the word policy to me, because I'll be honest with you, that's just the irritation starts to build. And I'm like, don't ever just tell me it's policy. I was like, I've been coming to this dentist for 8 years. No one's ever charged me £100 deposit. Why you want £100 deposit? Well, you might not turn up for the appointment. And I was like, you're accurate. I might. I was like, but I will, because I've made the appointment. I'm a decent person, and I've never not turned up for an appointment. I was like, you, in fact, have cancelled appointments on me at the last minute, and I've never been given £100 bonus payment because of that. And all she wanted to do was just tell me about policy. And this is where we go wrong, actually, in this experience. She wants to tell me about policy and why I have to pay this £100 deposit. I'm like, it's insane. I was like, why would I give you £100 of my money for the next 2 months for free? You're just going to sit and claim interest on my money. That's nuts. I'm not doing it. Oh, well, you're going to have to pay, I'm afraid. Oh, you're not going to get the appointment. And then I'm like, have you ever had any customer? Well, that's kind of it. I just said, look, have you had any customer experience training? And she went, what's that? And I was like, this here, this moment. And she's like, oh no, I've never done that. And I was like, well,
it shows.
Maybe there's an opportunity. More importantly, I went to go and pay, and I was like, I'm bored of this. I'll pay. Apple Pay, obviously, went to go and do my thing. Wouldn't work. She's got me. And I think I must have tapped my phone on this little chip and pin device 17 times. And I was like, can we all just accept that this isn't happening now? She's like, oh, it'll work. I was like, it's not going to work. She's like, oh, maybe it's because it's over £100. I was like, I could spend £10,000 on Apple Pay. I could go and buy a car now if I wanted to on Apple Pay. It'd be okay. You're just being silly. Didn't get there. Didn't get there at all. I was like, I'll see you. Maybe I'll come back and pay when I've got a card. Because she was like, well, you just need to get a card out. I was like, I live in 2025, love. You know, I don't carry a card. I have a mobile phone. My life is led by this. You know, maybe I'll come back. That woman could have done with somebody around her who would have sat down and just gone, hang on a minute. Just all you've done to this guy so far is you've listed policies and reasons why he's wrong. Not to the fact that actually you haven't looked and said, has anybody ever charged him a deposit? And if not, well, then he's obviously a trustworthy fella. And this new policy is a different thing that we're going to have to try and implement. Somebody could have given her a bit of guidance, but nobody did. So all she's got is policy. And the computer says no. And I'll be honest with you, I just can't tolerate that. I won't tolerate it. So I didn't pay the deposit. I walked out with a smile on my face and said, maybe I'll come back and pay you for the appointment that we've just used at some point. But I made no promises about when that might be. I mean, I will go back and pay because it's the right thing to do, but I've just that little bit of fear. A little bit of fear is a wonderful thing.
You said about there, Kieran, about in safety, they talk about when things go wrong, and they look at it and they say, well, the policies are written by people who is work as imagined, and then it comes down to the front line and it's work as done, and they very rarely cross over.
You're not wrong. It blows me away, and it's one of those things when I think about you talk about how we're going to talk to our people, they think about how we're going to engage. Well, if that is a new policy, that's fine. But first of all, communicate it more effectively, and then train your people on how to deploy that policy in a way that's not going to leave this fella who's already waited 50 minutes feeling irritated. Just do it. And it kind of comes from conversation. So, yeah, for me, it's there's so much opportunity. There is so much opportunity to teach people and share knowledge with people, but we just don't take it enough, to be fair. So we should. Ben, you've got some comments.
Yes. Yes. I mean, we've got Julie and Ruth joining in. Julie's first of all, Julie also, she loves Glynnis. She loves Glynnis by the sound.
Everyone's got a Glynnis.
Everyone's got a Glynnis. Everyone should have a Glynnis that doesn't have one as well. Talking about the conversation being very inspiring, and Ruth also agrees. So true. Delay the bill equals no tips, none.
Done. And it's nuts.
It's crackers. So it reminds me of the policy angle. I'm not in hospitality, and when I hear that, that's a bugbear for me, because being the profiler, I hear I'm just refusing to think. I'm using a scapegoat line to try and placate you so you will go away. That's the kind of the subtitled translation that I hear. And everything that we've been on about so far today strikes me that there is opportunities for the businesses and the employers to learn from, but also the people that attend the venues and the workers that go for interviews in these kind of places. There are opportunities for them to learn about the environment that they're going to be in. So, like, on the flip side of the conversation so far, in your experience, because I'm not asking you to trash anyone or just go full bitchy, but in your experience, why is it that people don't lean into these kind of scenarios? Is it just because they don't know any better? Is it the fear of being shown up? Some combination of the two? Something else entirely? What is it that kind of brings that about?
I genuinely, I think it is a combination. I think we're all human beings and we're all different. And for some of us, it's fear. So that young lady yesterday in the dentist, fear kicked in because she started to understand that I was annoyed. I was being nice. I hadn't raised my voice, but everything that was coming out of my mouth was designed to let her know that I was irritated and I was deeply unhappy and that she wasn't solving my problem. So fear kicked in for her. Now, in that moment, if fear doesn't kick in, she just goes, okay, well, let's do 2 transactions. We'll split the money across 2 transactions because if it's the £100 fee that's the problem, then the transaction will go through. But because she's got the little monkey, the little chimp kicking around in her head, and like the fear is kicking in, then she's not thinking logically exactly that. She's just making bad choices. So then she just doubles down on, I've just got to keep saying this. All I've got as a defense is this. So I'll just keep saying it. And I hope that basically he'll get bored of listening to it before I get bored of saying it. That's where she's at. Then there is the fact that actually there is training. There is training and development that goes into how do we deal with these situations? How do we deal with these moments? So my friend who was in Stornoway, 35 minutes is a really long time to wait for your bill. It's just not acceptable. So how could those team members be trained? Not necessarily to avoid it, because that should be the starting point. You know, if anybody in your business is waiting longer than 3 minutes for a bill, or certainly to pay that bill once it's been dropped off, you're falling short, fix it. But if you do get to that terrible point of 35 minutes where something's just gone through, like you've slipped through the cracks, which is it's a thing that happens.
Yeah.
Systems and processes are a wonderful thing, but every now and again they fall short. So if that happens where you're sitting waiting for 35 minutes, what can I do in that moment to resolve this person? What can I do in that moment to make my friend feel good that the next time he comes back or when he goes on social media and talks about it, he doesn't talk about the problem, but he talks about the way it was handled. Because I have had some terrible situations where people have had like bad experiences that are our fault. You know, we've given them the wrong dish. We fed a vegetarian chicken. There's so many things that go wrong just because people are human and make mistakes. How you resolve the issue and the training and development that goes into that is the key. So the person that I fed chicken to, well, not me, but one of my team fed chicken to, it definitely wasn't me. I was a vegetarian. I was freaking raging, to be honest with you. But that person who we fed chicken to as a vegetarian, and this person had been a veggie for 30 odd years, how do I make them feel that actually, yes, I feel empathy for this. So I talk about kind of where I'm at. I talk about the fact that I've been a vegetarian since I was 17. And actually, if somebody fed me chicken, I would be raging. So I truly understand how they're feeling in this moment. And if they need to shout, shout. If they want to tell me I'm a dick, tell me I'm a dick. I'm okay. It's on me. I take responsibility. It might have been one of my team that did it, but I'm the smiling face of this situation. So do what you need to do. But I want to find a resolution that's going to have you walking out of this door feeling good about life. There are certain situations where that resolution is, I'm just going to pick up the bill today and it's on me. Don't even worry. That person didn't pay for that meal, but more importantly, they didn't pay for the next meal the next time they came in, because having them walk away thinking, at least he's kind of sorted me out today. Right. That's one thing, but that potentially means they're never coming back. And in our business, we can't be about when somebody leaves the door, they should be thinking about when they come back, not if they come back. So we've got to be taking steps and putting actions into place that's the conversation. The only way that person was going to be thinking about when they come back is if I say, this is on me today, we're not even going to talk about that. But the next time you come through this door, you make sure that I will make sure that I'm on duty. I'll make sure that I come and talk to you, and I'll make sure that we know what's going on and you're going to have the best time. It's going to be incredible. And my team see the way I operate that. My team watch, because we learn for osmosis in a lot of situations. I think my ability to communicate with people, I learned from watching my mum do it. My mum was amazing. She was a storyteller, but she could get people to open up and tell them their life history. I learned how to do it by watching her do it. She was incredible at it. So our teams will do the same thing. So sometimes we do some training, which is necessary. Sometimes we have them buddy and we have them shadow and watch the way we work. And sometimes we just talk them through situations. But the reality is people don't do that enough because they don't put enough time and energy and effort into the training of their people because they think it's not that hard. What we do isn't, and they're not wrong. Hospitality is not hard. It's just be cool, treat people well, make sure they get the food that they ordered at the right time, and they can leave when they're ready to rock. It's not complicated. However, the magic behind hospitality, that's the complicated bit. How we make them feel is the complicated bit. So I want them to see that. So fear is a thing, lack of training is a thing, and sometimes people just don't give a damn. And if you've got somebody in your business who doesn't give a damn, there's a simple answer to that. Off your pop, Johnny. I'll either make you better or I'll make you gone. Simple. That's kind of it. And it's brutal, but I personally, when I think back to my days, I would not have somebody in my business who was not driven by the motivation. Every single customer, every single guest was going to walk away thinking, damn, that was good.
Yeah.
That was good. When do I come back again? How do I tell my friends? And in today's world, do I go on Instagram Live? Do I write a post? Do I go on TikTok? I spent 35 minutes yesterday on TikTok Live talking about my dentist experience. 35 minutes. I was ranting like a maniac. 190 people watched that video of me losing my mind. I was enjoying it, but all of the rage and the frustration just comes out. So in the world today, we've got to think about what are people thinking when they walk out the door? What is their next step? Is their next step to plan the next visit? Is their next step to think about how they're going to tell the world about it and what they're going to tell the world about it? And then more importantly, are they just having a smile? Like, do they have a smile on their face when they walk out the door? Because if they do, we're going to be all right. We are going to be all right. So yeah, there's a few things that stop it, dude. And I think all of them are avoidable. All of them are utterly manageable. And we just have to put the time and energy in and the commitment to say, what makes this a better place? Why will my corner of the world be the best corner of the world it can be? That's just the responsibility. And goes back to that intent-based leadership. If 136 people are walking around with that as their motivation, you know what's going to happen? It's going to be amazing. And my day gets a lot easier, which I'm all in for.
Yeah. And there's no app service to do that either. Sorry, that's what it made me think of. Bob, sorry, carry on.
Well, I was going to say it's been the quickest hour that I think we have done on these podcasts, and we do stick to an hour. And I know, Kieran, you could probably go on for another 2 hours.
Mate, I did 35 minutes on a dentist.
maybe we'll have to do this. Well, we definitely will have to do this again because it's been great. Any thoughts from you, Ben, before we finish? We'll leave Kieran to last, but you go first.
Well, there's a phrase that stuck with me from the business classes that I've taken before, and I don't know who said it. It's one of those things like you hear a quote on the internet. It could be from the person, I don't know, but it's the idea behind it that I like, of aces in their places. So if the millennial is the ace in their place, awesome. If the pensioner is the ace in their place, awesome. If the 18-year-old is the ace in their place, awesome. Let's be open enough to learn from that environment so we can make the whole situation the best thing that it can be. In any situation, we try and do it here as often as possible because it could be considered impersonal. We're in 3 separate rooms from around the planet, so we have to go the extra mile to try and make it feel fun and try and communicate more intentionally with one another. Just seep those ideas over into a little bit more of everyday life, and we might be okay.
I love that. And I think aces in places is the starting point. And that aces in places is a hospitality term that will get thrown out left, right, and center. But the next part of that is, how do those aces share what they know to make sure that every single person is an ace in every single department? And then it can all just drop in and fill gaps. It should be like water. They should just be able to move around, fill spaces, and get the job done beautifully. I love that. I'm onto it, Ben. I like that a lot. I was going to ask you about how your skills as a deductionist. So in that moment, like when if you're the guest and you've waited sort of 35 minutes to pay your bill, what questions are you going to ask of the person who's coming to come and get it sorted? Or are you just like, pay the bill and let me go?
Well, it's only happened twice, because I usually don't wait. If I've waited longer than 10 minutes, I'm up and going to find someone. That's usually what's happening in that scenario. But it will depend on the answer to the first question, which is, what took so long? Not like in a, oh, I'm so angry, what took so long? But in a, like, what took so long? Are you rushed off your feet? You're busy? Like, what, alleviate some of your tension. See if I can help. See if
we forgot about you.
Yeah.
Let's role play it.
Oh, we forgot about you. Why are you busy? Have you not been doing this long?
No, I'm very good. I've been around this block for quite some time, to be honest with you. We just got a bit overwhelmed today.
Well, overwhelm is not one of those things that can be helped. What are you going to do to be able to pick it up quicker next time? Because I might not be able to stand the same thing again.
You know what? In this moment, I'm going to do my best to make you happy, but I think, how do I avoid this moving forward? Maybe the process needs changing. Maybe the system needs adjusting. Maybe that's what we need to look at. Thanks so much for that. That's given me something to think about.
You're more than welcome. Recognition is the first part.
Smashed it. See, you could do this. Want to work in a restaurant for a bit? I'll get you a job somewhere.
Sure, let's do it. Well,
create some content.
Yeah, absolutely. The deductionist waiter. Come on.
Come on, there's something to that, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Well, for me, it's just it's like hearing myself speak in a lot of regards, because we obviously, our thoughts and everything align quite a lot. But the quote that I always give out and I think of is, people won't remember what you said, they won't remember what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel. And that is so true. Kieran, it's been a real pleasure having you on here, and I'll leave the last word to you. If you want to sort of give your views at the very end, and give a commitment to come back if you would.
I mean, I'll come back anytime you want, Bob. There's a reason why we get on. It's because kind of you make a lot of sense. And like I say, I always benefit from spending time with you boys. So I'll be back anytime. For me, this is, I get distracted, and I love this thing. I love hospitality. I love the idea of building this space where multi-generations will work side by side. And we are at a place where there are going to be 4 generations working side by side. How do we create that place where it's comfortable? Well, we've got to start to look about what needs to be done. We've got to think comfortable with making some change, and comfortable with understanding what we need to do differently. And that for me is the big deal. So, mate, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I've just looked down at my clock and I can't believe how quickly that's gone by. So sorry for my ranting. It's a thing. But it's been a real pleasure, an absolute pleasure.
No, Kieran, we appreciate just encapsulated in what you just said there, why behavioural intelligence is so important. Understanding yourself and understanding others, because it's all about communication at the end of the day.
Well, that's it, isn't it, really? That's it. And that's all hospitality is. It's not that complicated. I mean, I'm a simple man. I left school with an art religious education GCSE and an art GCSE. I don't really know how, if I'm honest. I think maybe because I like a chat for RE. I could just argue some cases. So I'm no genius, but what we do is pretty simple. You've just got to care.
Beautiful, beautiful. And for those asking about Kieran's next show and where you can find more of his information, I'm going to get that off him after we finished here, so I could share it with you guys in the description box below, so you can keep up to date with his goings on as he slowly dominates the world, no doubt.
Step by step.
Absolutely. So, guys, if you've got anything out of today, we'd love to hear from you in terms of what your takeaways are, what your golden nuggets are, the things that you're not going to do that you did before, or the things that you're going to do that you didn't do before. These types of things, they help us understand how we can reformulate and bring you more targeted, accurate, beneficial episodes for all you wonderful people out there listening. So, with that in mind, we're going to love you and leave you. And we'll see you all again very soon for another episode. All right, guys, take care.